In 2012, I had a harrowing experience with my health that nearly cost me my life. At the time, I was a 48-year-old man who, like many others, didn't prioritize my health as much as I should have. I had been feeling unwell for several weeks, but my symptoms were inconsistent. I would have moments of intense discomfort, including an intense cough, sneezing, and a high fever. However, taking some over-the-counter medications usually made me feel better, which led me to believe that my condition wasn't too serious. Despite my optimism, my wife became increasingly concerned about my health and convinced me to see a doctor. After a thorough examination, I was diagnosed with double pneumonia, and the doctor immediately sent me to the hospital. However, things took a turn for the worse when I was admitted to the intensive care unit, ICU, and placed in an induced coma. My body was too weak to fight the inflammation, and my breathing became increasingly difficult. The doctors explained to my wife that while in the induced coma, my body wouldn't require as much oxygen as it would when I was awake, which would allow me to rest and recover more quickly. However, the situation remained dire, and the doctors were uncertain if I would survive the next 48 hours. I was in an extremely vulnerable state, and my body was struggling to fight off the illness. During my coma, I felt as though my consciousness was transported to a mysterious and unfamiliar place. It was a dark room with red floors and ceilings, and I could see big black spiders crawling on the walls. Although it may sound terrifying, I felt an overwhelming sense of calm and serenity. As I moved forward, I entered an area that was filled with what seemed like dense weeds. The area was still red, and the weeds were black. The weeds towered over me, forcing me to push them aside as I walked. Suddenly, I found myself in a vast space where I was surrounded by a stunning night sky filled with bright stars. The space was so beautiful that it took my breath away. Although I didn't seem to have a physical body, I was completely aware of myself. I wasn't aware of my life on Earth or anyone in it, only of myself. As I floated through space, I was mesmerized by the beauty of the lights and stars. In the distance, I could see a massive galaxy of stars, which added to the already breathtaking beauty that surrounded me. I observed a magnificent galaxy that appeared to be round, with a very bright center. Even though it seemed to be a million miles away from me, I could still perceive it clearly. Suddenly, the thought of seeing it up close crossed my mind, and almost instantly, I was transported to it. I found myself floating over the galaxy, looking down at it. At this moment, I felt immense, much larger than the galaxy itself. It was as if I was peering through a transparent ceiling, and I could see a stunning beach. Thousands of people walking around, surrounded by lush trees and an endless ocean. As I gazed down at the scene, I felt a sense of tranquility and awe. Though I could hear people talking, their voices were faint, and I could not make out what they were saying. It seemed like I was at the treetop level, and I could see the people very clearly, but they appeared to be too far away to understand. Even though I felt enormous, the people on the beach seemed tiny in comparison. Despite the distance, the view was breathtaking, and I couldn't help but admire the beauty of the landscape in front of me. All of a sudden, I woke up back at the hospital. Although, in my mind, my experience had lasted only a few minutes, I had been in a coma for 4 days. During that time, my heart had stopped for a few seconds, and I believe that those few seconds are when I had my experience. However, it is impossible to know for sure. I remember feeling an overwhelming sense of peace and calm during my experience, despite knowing that I was on the verge of death. Since making a full recovery from this traumatic experience, I have been plagued with numerous questions. What did I see? Was it real, or was it merely a hallucination caused by the medications in my body? These are questions that may never be answered, but I can attest that my experience was genuine. It was so vivid and real in my mind that I consider it as a part of my life. Despite the uncertainty surrounding my experience, I am grateful to have survived. It has made me appreciate life even more. The realization that life can end at any moment has made me more mindful of my actions and decisions. I feel like I have been given a second chance to make the most of my life,